Welcome to the Growing Up Bananas podcast, where we dissect the perks and tribulations of being bananas.
It's hard being yellow when we feel so white.
My name is Ethan. I've got Louise and Aylin with me today, and in many ways, I'm sitting next to them. How are we today, ladies?
Really good. Thanks for having us, Ethan.
Thanks for coming on, and I guess today I'm very fortunate to have the co-hosts of Everyday Asian podcast. These lovely ladies discuss life, traditions, food, and what it means to be an Asian Australian. Please check them out on their socials and stay up to date with their latest content and episodes.
I feel somewhat stereotypical in the fact that I did a lot of things that you see on the Asian memes. So my parents have a Chinese restaurant. I grew up working at the restaurant. I went to Chinese school for a lot of years.
Yep.
I did maths tutoring, Aylin. So
Yeah.
a lot of those things, yes, I do tick the boxes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Asian women have a lot of similar problems. My workplace is we've got a lot of Asians, and then I find that when I talk to other female colleagues, maybe we've had the same argument with our mom, and so we bond over that and share what has helped, because I think the relationship between an Asian mom and her daughter is quite unique.
This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Be sure to check out Podcasts of the Month, Terror Tuesday, and The Graveyard Club. So my first question is always the same. Do you guys consider yourself bananas?
My answer, I don't know if you've ever heard of it before, but I have been asked this before when I was a kid, and I would say I'm a banana with a scrambled egg inside, which doesn't sound great, in terms of taste. But to explain this, it would be obviously I look very Asian on the outside because I was born in China from two Chinese parents, and from what I know, all of my family is of Chinese descent. I don't think there's much mixed blood in there. But I did come to Australia when I was very young, so since I was 4 years old, I believe. And so growing up, essentially my childhood was very westernized, but also my parents tried to retain as much Chinese culture in my upbringing as possible. So it was kind of a dichotomy for me, and trying to navigate that has been challenging, but also very rewarding at the same time. And so I believe inside this banana skin, I'm still very mixed, and I feel like I'm quite proud of that. So maybe in certain responses, with your questions, it might come out with my with my responses, it would be a mix of Asian and white.
And you can speak Chinese fluently?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Because we've found that the language is a massive, connector to your heritage. So you can speak if it's, Hindi or if it's Mandarin or Cantonese, whatever it might be. If you can actually speak, you still feel a bit more in touch.
Yeah,
With
definitely.
that side. So the scrambled egg inside of a banana. And what yourself?
Yeah, I don't think I see myself as a straight banana either. I was trying to think of a fruit that is just maybe all yellow or yellow and white mixed between, but maybe I'm also a scrambled egg. I don't think I'm very Western on the inside, and I think Alien and I had a similar way of being brought up in traditional households, and so that's kind of affected me personally, sort of sharing the Asian values, but then also having those the Western culture and schooling and everything influence me as well. So I feel like I'd like to think I'm a good mixture of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Just on that, you spoke about Asian values, and obviously we do Asian-centric podcast. What can we agree on is an Asian value? Because I get a lot of my friends talk to me about it and say, what does it actually mean when they say, oh, I had an Asian upbringing, that sort of thing? What does it mean to you guys?
Yeah, good question. I think there's many facets to that. Like you could break it up into like family or career, relationship, etc. But if we talk about family first, like family is very big in Asian culture usually, and it revolves around like respect, giving back to your family first, and upholding certain cultural like rituals or like gatherings is quite important, coming together as one. So I think like if you're focusing on that side of things, that's many values in the family side of things.
Yeah.
What do you think, Louise?
Yes, definitely. It's kind of a hard question because in a way, you're thinking like what actually makes it the Asian value rather than a set of values that a lot of cultures uphold and they really prioritize. So yeah, I mean, family values, yes. I feel as though like on the more Asian side, in general, a lot of Asian households, they've kind of, at least the parents, they've come from maybe a place where they didn't have very much. And so they really uphold education and furthering your career to better the next generation and have more than what the previous generation had. And so the value of also hard work, I think they're extremely hardworking and they want to excel maybe more than some other, I don't know, maybe more than normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys have hit the nail on the head. So it's a combination of, like you said, where you're trying to improve the next generation. So whether that's through family, marriage, upholding certain traditions, like say, different ways to celebrate, and then also things that go to supporting that next generation, which will be education, things like that.
Yeah.
And that is probably the crux of an Asian sort of upbringing, I think. Aileen, you sort of gave us a bit of background. So Chinese, Louise, just for my listeners, can you give us a little bit of background on your cultural or ethnic heritage?
Yeah, sure. So I was born here and my parents are from the Canton province, so southern China. And we speak Cantonese at home. I basically grew up here, did all my schooling here. So I guess I do feel quite westernized in a way. Yeah. But yeah, because my parents, they did immigrate from China, we still always talk Chinese at home.
Nice.
Yeah, very, traditionally Asian-based kind of household values, like I said. And then I feel somewhat stereotypical in the fact that I did a lot of like things that you see on the Asian memes. So my parents have a Chinese restaurant. I grew up working at the restaurant. I went to Chinese school for a lot of years.
Yep.
I did maths tutoring with Aileen. So
Yeah.
a lot of those things, like, yes, I do tick the boxes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could fit the stereotypical.
The ABC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fresh off the boat now.
And then growing up, was it important for you guys to be able to speak Chinese? Because I know for me, obviously I grew up in South Africa. We immigrated when I was young, 11. Speaking Chinese was just never a priority. Obviously now I'm really regretting that. For you guys growing up, was it something that you really wanted to learn for yourselves, or was it more kind of, we're a Chinese family, we need to speak Chinese? Like,
Yeah. For me, initially, it was a lot of pressure from my parents. Speaking wise, it was pretty easy. I was in China for like 2 or 3 years before I moved to Australia. That speaking part was really easy, but the writing and reading comprehension was difficult. And initially, my parents, kind of forced me to go to Chinese school every Saturday. And as a little kid, when you're still like making friends in primary school, it didn't feel like I super wanted to go. Like it wasn't coming out from within. So there was a bit of like tension for that. But then, I couldn't do anything. So I just kept going. And eventually, like I met Louise at Chinese school, met different friends. And it's nice because they teach you not only about the language, but culture and like TV shows and travel and things like that. So you start getting immersed into that. And eventually it turned into like liking going to Chinese school and learning about it. And now I'm really grateful because I can like not only watch Western TV shows, I can watch Chinese TV shows. I can go to China and speak with the locals. And so I'm very grateful that I continued to learn.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Like at the start, I don't even think it was like a conscious thought because when your parents just, like you grow up with your parents speaking Chinese in the household.
Yeah.
And then for me, like learning Chinese, it was kind of like a social thing. So I get to like see my friends and everything. And I think I have an inclination to enjoy learning languages.
Okay.
So I didn't find it like it wasn't like I was begrudgingly going to Chinese school every weekend, really. But I never thought like, oh, this is really important for the rest of my life until you look back now and it's like I'm so, thankful that I did learn when I was young.
So we usually speak to everyone about their Chinese school shenanigans, and you guys obviously great friends now. Is there any really fond or vivid memories you guys can remember from those times?
So many.
Too many.
Because like you said, right, half the people, maybe not even half, probably 3/4 of the people don't want to be there.
Yeah.
They're getting forced by their parents. And then the other quarter are potentially off the boat people who just want to continue to learn, right?
Yeah.
So you have that mix. Like we went to Chinese school for a brief time in South Africa.
Nice.
And it was just a circus because it wasn't,
Yeah.
classes weren't by skill. Sorry, they weren't by age, they were by skill.
Yeah.
So you had people who were in their 30s.
Yeah.
My mum was actually in our class. So it was just an absolute circus.
Wow.
Do you guys have any one or two things you can remember that really stand out?
Yeah.
So first thing that comes off the top of my head, I remember just making a lot of random poems.
Louise was the poem master.
I'm a poet master. I am a poet. So in Chinese school, you'd learn about the history and like idioms and the Chinese poems from different dynasties. Yeah. I actually really enjoyed those. So we were encouraged to go home and try to memorize it. And there's like this way that you speak about like when you're reading out the poem. And then I just remember like being really stupid and creating my own poems and trying to make them rhyme and stuff. And
they were really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I was like jealous of her poem writing. And
it was really dumb.
And also she would like, usually in a Chinese poem, you would like say the title and then you say what dynasty it was made from. And she would always say, name a poem, Tang Dynasty.
Yeah,
and then
but it was me.
It was Louise.
In 2000.
Yeah.
And 5.
Yeah.
Something.
Still from the Tang
Very
Dynasty.
creative.
Yeah. But for me, it was quite fond memories. And I'm very grateful to meet Louise because I feel like without her being there, it would have probably been less fun for me. But like you said, Ethan, like initially a lot of people there are being forced by their parents.
Yeah.
So it's in a way you're bonding with each other because you're all in similar situations.
Giving up your Saturday
Yeah,
mornings or afternoons.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you kind of bond in a weird way like that. And I, to be honest, looked forward to the breaks.
Yeah, lunchtime.
Yeah, where you could like run around and play games.
Yeah.
But I also like really enjoyed, like I said before, learning about like the culture. So rather than reading the characters or like writing little pieces, I like learning about, Chinese New Year or other cultural celebrations or values like the zodiac. And we would sometimes sing songs as well. And Louise and I actually enjoy singing quite a bit. So we would attend like multicultural festivals for our Chinese school.
Yeah.
And sing in front of an audience.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was quite cool. So yeah, I kind of enjoyed the extracurricular things and cultural things around Chinese school, but also learning the language just comes with it. So yeah.
So you can definitely notice that Aileen was the good student and I was kind of like the person that didn't take things very seriously at all. And I think our experience of Chinese school was a little bit different to maybe a lot of other people that went through it because so in Canberra, or where we lived, the Chinese school was actually established by both of our families.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, so it was just like a little community project, and at the start, all the students were actually just like our family friends. In the class, it was actually Aileen and I in one class, and then our siblings in the other class.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I can see why you kind of
yeah.
said like it was a social
yeah,
situation rather than
It really
actual
was.
school. Or
Yeah. And sometimes the teachers were our mum and dads.
yes, yeah.
How did that go for you?
Sometimes not so well.
I don't really remember. Maybe I'll try to block it out.
More so my mum was the teacher.
See, that's cool because you guys had that kind of fast road or inroad, if you want to call it, to learning the language. Because you talk to a lot of our other guests come on and they had horrible experiences. So it was going on a Saturday morning and
Yeah.
just being kind of, I would say abused, but tortured into learning. And
Yeah.
why don't you understand this, that sort of thing? And then they leave the class crying, but like you guys had your parents and obviously friends and things like that. So you guys are pretty lucky to
Yeah.
have that experience, I think.
Yeah. Just quick question. Have you ever cried from Chinese school? I don't know if I've ever cried.
You know I've cried.
From the teachers, which were masquerading as your parents.
Yes. Well, vivid memory was like Louise has a really good memory, whereas I'm the type of person who needs to like read a character like 100 times before it actually goes into my head. So she would always smash the we call 默写, which means like you have to write out the characters of the week before that you learned, like from memory.
Yeah.
And she would always get really good. And I would sometimes not do so good. And yes, that was when my mum was the teacher too. So yeah, that was a bit traumatizing. But also I didn't study enough, so I should have just put more hard work into it.
But maybe your mum just couldn't really get so mad at me if I got something wrong.
That's also true. Yeah.
So on the parent front then, because that's, I think, something that we've probably all come across quite a lot in doing like an Asian-centric podcast is the relationship with parents, how they show their love, etc., how they were pushed. For you guys then, we can take it one at a time. Like, what was the relationship like with the parents? Were they, quote-unquote, tiger parents, making sure that the boxes were ticked, studying properly, those sorts of things? What was the experience like for you guys?
Yeah, I can go first. So I would say, look, I think when I was a younger kid, I might have thought my parents were more tiger parents. Yeah, very big emphasis on education, working hard. They would question a lot why I even wanted to go play with friends on certain days when I could be studying. Yeah, so typical things like being very anxious about asking them to hang out with friends, and if I've already hung out with Louise one day of the week, I can't add another day to that week.
Why would you want to see her again?
Whoa.
That's what the parents are
That's
asking
true. Not worth the lecture from the parents.
They knew I was a hooligan.
No, but also they love Louise, so they would rarely say no to my request. If it was like friends that they didn't know, it would be more of a, I would have to try harder to convince them. Yeah, and like we talked about before, like we were very traditional in the household, like in terms of helping out with chores, like I was expected to do a lot and learn, which is a good thing. And
So can you cook? That's the question.
I would like to think that I'm getting there. Like I can cook a few dishes and I enjoy the process of cooking. Like I like looking up new recipes and trying it out. I can make dumplings. But I wouldn't say I'm up to my mum's standard or my grandma's standard of cooking, of course. Yeah. So, but growing up, like later on towards uni and now as like an adult, I do feel like my parents have, in certain aspects, been less tiger parent. Also because I moved away from home for uni. So there's that like physical like
Distance.
Yeah, correct. So
Did you move away to get away from them? Because there's plenty of good universities around Canberra and Sydney.
yeah, that's correct.
So was that a factor?
I wouldn't say like I just wanted to get out of Canberra and get out of home. Like that wasn't my motivator.
Yeah.
But growing up in Canberra, it is a pretty small place to be. And Australia is so big and you just like see like Sydney and Melbourne or like other big cities and it looks really fun. So I would say that's the main thing. And then also Canberra universities for my profession as a physio. At that time, there weren't many options as well. So I did apply to way more interstate universities. Initially, I was actually going to go to Newcastle University because that was closer to home.
Yeah.
And that was like my decision. But then I got accepted into University of Queensland in Brisbane and I was like very hesitant because, to be honest, I didn't have any friends in Brisbane. But it was actually my mum who encouraged me to go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because maybe in her eyes she thought UQ was like a prestigious uni as well. So she was like, yeah.
Which it is.
Yeah. So she was like, yeah, you should go there. And also maybe at the back of her mind she thought I would have a better uni experience being in a bigger city.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So
we'll definitely touch on the post-school impact and I suppose experiences.
Yeah.
Because I think that's very important for a lot of people to know. Once you're in the nest and then you leave, there's obviously a big change and you're finding yourself and things like that. So, no, that's perfect. And any siblings? I didn't even ask.
Yeah. I have a little brother and he was born in Australia because when I was born, it's still the one-child policy in China. But after we migrated, Mum had Kevin, my brother, and he's actually 10 years younger than me.
Oh, right.
So there's a huge age gap. Yeah.
How is that for you? Is it cool having, at times it's going to be positive and negative?
Yeah.
How are you finding having such a younger sibling?
Yeah, I would agree. Positive and negative. Positive would be that I, try my best to be a role model for him. And also then my parents, their attention can shift to him more when I'm an adult. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So right now he's like almost going through year 11, year 12, like the most important years for his study. So they're definitely more focused on him and then I can kind of focus on myself and not feel as much pressure.
Yeah.
Negative would be because of the age gap. I do feel sometimes a bit guilty because during the years when he was a child, I was really focused on my studies, trying to get into uni and then getting a job, etc., and moving away. So I do feel a bit of guilt not being able to spend as much time as I would like with him. So now I go back and I do try as much as I can.
Well, it's also a 10-year-old and a 20-year-old. They're not going to have too much to talk about, but a 15 and 25-year-old may have a bit more
that's right.
to offer each other. So.
Yeah, and he's pretty open to talking. Like sometimes typical boy, he won't have much to say, but I'll just like keep trying.
Yeah.
No, thanks. That's a really good summary of early life for you. So
thank you.
Thanks for that, Aileen.
No worries.
Louise, what about you? So family, strictness, upbringing, if you can take us through your side of the story.
I think my parents weren't too strict.
So weren't too strict?
They weren't too strict. I have some cousins in Sydney and I hear about kind of their experiences and friends in Sydney as well, and they've kind of shared with me how they were brought up, and it's quite regimented in a way.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because so my dad's always like been in the trades, and then my mum didn't finish uni or anything like that, and so they had aspirations for me and my brother, but they were also balanced with just like bettering ourselves, but not to like such a degree that, you know, we hate our job or we hate what we're doing at school. So my mum has always been more vocal with making sure that our education is on point and like with uni and stuff, making sure we made the right decision. And yeah, Dad was definitely more chill. Like he just left it to my mum. Yeah. So she definitely made us do all those, you know, those Excel workbooks. So we did all of that. I did all of that. And then I passed those books down to my brother and he has done all of that. Yeah. So I think that kind of stems from just because like our family, there's not heaps of people that went to uni. So to make sure that her children were able to do well at school and get into a good job later in life. Yeah. As to the whole like what job we picked, I'm glad my mum wasn't like a tiger mum in that respect, and we know like the big 3 Asian jobs, but my mum was just like, just choose a job that you think it will enjoy long term. And so yeah, being able to kind of pave my own way in that respect, and I'm lucky I did choose something I enjoyed. I'm thankful that she just didn't push me in a certain way, like towards medicine or towards like being an accountant or a lawyer if I wasn't inclined that way, which I'm not. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's great. And one thing that I guess we will again touch on it later when we start discussing a bit more about your podcast, but in terms of the one-child policy that you brought up, Aylin, so a lot of families or the people that we talk to who are from that era or from China during that part, they don't have a lot of cousins.
No.
So obviously their parents were one child and they're one too. So for me, my mum is one of 9.
Wow.
So we've got a massive immediate family.
Yeah.
Cousins. I think I've got like 30-something cousins.
Wow.
Something like that. So I've always thought about Asian families and Indian families where there's this big family gatherings. So like firstly, like for you, what is it like? Because like you say, you were born under the one-child policy.
Yeah.
Like, do you have cousins?
I do have cousins, but yeah, like you said, I only have 2 immediate cousins.
Yeah.
Because each on my mum and dad's side, they have a sister or a brother.
Yeah.
And then they each only had one child because of the
exactly.
one-child policy. So immediately I only have 2 cousins. However, we migrated to Australia and we're literally the only immediate family in Australia. So we're even smaller.
Yeah.
So it's just me, my mum, dad and brother. So in terms of celebrating family things, it's very much so a small gathering, or we have lots of like great Chinese community friends in Canberra and we kind of form our own little family that way. Whereas when we go back to China, it still seems really lively and big because other than the cousins, we have all of the great aunties and uncles and second I don't know who they exactly are, but they seem to appear. And yeah, so it still seems really like big family gatherings when we go back.
Yeah.
But less so cousins.
Because that's definitely a theme that I've noticed and I wouldn't have thought about it, you know, talk about reality versus perception. Once we started doing the podcast, talking to people who actually came from China or Singapore or wherever it may be, that they just did not actually have a lot of extended family because of certain things that have happened at the time.
Yeah. That's actually a really interesting point. I never really thought about that before.
Because you always picture in movies and things, big family gatherings, there's like 80 people. That was us.
Yeah.
In
Wow.
South.
Yeah.
Whereas you come here, my only immediate family is my uncle in Sydney.
Yeah.
He's got 3 kids.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's no one. But then my wife, who's Vietnamese, they're the same thing. So a small gathering for one of our kids' birthdays is 50 people before inviting even friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I guess it depends on, because we're all kind of migrants as well, migrant families, it depends on whether your extended families also migrated over to Australia and the same city.
Yes, exactly.
And then if that's possible to do like big gatherings.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like, I would go back to Canberra just to celebrate Chinese New Year in my immediate family, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on, how many siblings do your mum and dad have?
1 each.
Okay, I don't know what happened, but my mum and dad have multiple siblings.
Yeah.
they're from China as well.
Yeah.
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 We're just, how did that work?
So I actually, I have some weird interests from time. So
Yeah.
I go down
Okay.
YouTube rabbit holes as we all do.
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching something on the Chinese population decline
Yes.
and how the certain policies over time have actually affected things. So out of, it would have been the Second World War, and again, excuse my facts if they were just a bit off, but there was the average woman had, I think it was 6 point something kids per person. That was sort of just before the Second World War.
Yeah.
Which was way too many. China needed that to be down within the twos.
Yeah.
So then they implemented a 3-child policy to then have a 1-child policy, but then you could actually have more than one child if you were rurally based.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Things like that. So you could have more than one child. It's just you couldn't do it if you're living in the city.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, and then obviously the effect of that is you can only have one child, so you got to really pick: do you want a boy or a girl? And then that leads to other issues.
Yeah.
And then now there's a lower availability of females because of that. So
Yeah.
it's just it's interesting. Like, I don't know if it's right or wrong. They had to do something.
There's another factor where if you have a lot of kids and you live in maybe more the rural or regional areas, you have more hands to help you with labor and farm work,
Yes,
which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But then if you were living in the city and you have more kids, that's more mouths to feed. So that's more expenses.
More urban jobs to fill.
Yeah, exactly.
Etc. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure my parents, at least my grandparents, they were all living in the cities when they had my parents.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a reason why they didn't have as many kids. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So both your parents lived in China. Have you guys had a chance through maybe the podcast experiences or others to actually speak to them and get a bit of an idea of what life was like for them and probably why they moved here? Have you guys had that opportunity?
Yeah. I don't need to bring it up. They bring it up themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Back in my day. So yeah, my parents would just talk about it over dinner all the time. Like, they definitely grew up in a period where it was quite difficult, like famine, yeah, definitely. And China back then was much less developed and rich as a country, and more so even for my grandparents' generation. So, yeah, they would definitely always talk to us about, like they weren't eating very well, like very bland or like cabbages every day. And also like how hard it would be to go to school. Like they would have to travel like very far or definitely no cars, just like riding bikes. So yeah, it paints quite maybe China in more of a poverty type of light. But it sounds like life was still very happy and, they
You don't know what you need till you think you need it, right?
Yeah, that's
Definitely
right.
not the saying, but
Yeah.
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 What about you guys? Have you had a good chance to speak to them?
I think my parents are a little bit older than your parents, Aileen.
Yeah.
So they definitely share the sentiments of like growing up with not very much and like sharing basically everything they have like with their siblings and everything and wanting to move somewhere else for a better life. So like my dad and my grandpa, they did come out here on a boat and they tried to establish themselves here and then bring the family over. And then my mum, she just always brings back that story how she had to like pay for my auntie, her younger sister, for her schooling and help out with the bills from a really young age, all the chores and how like on her birthday, she would just get one egg and that was the birthday present.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Whenever you hear those sorts of things, it just puts it all into perspective for us, right? It could have been us so easily. We're so lucky that things panned out the way it has.
Definitely.
So like that's one of the biggest takeaways I've had from doing this podcast experience is just giving myself perspective on all sorts of things and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
what could have been very well, which hopefully has set the scene for this next thing that we talk about, which is your podcast. So how did it start? We sort of spoke off camera, and I'm sure you guys have spoken many times through your episodes, how you met and how you're good friends and everything. But if you guys give us a quick rundown on how it all started and the early days, the planning that actually goes into it, because I think a lot of people want to do podcasts. They don't
Yeah.
realize how
Yeah.
much time and effort
Yeah.
goes into it. So yeah, take me through the beginning of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, Lini, you've always kind of talked to me about doing something outside of work, doing a little passion project. And we kind of talked about that on our own podcast as well, how we got into it. But basically, Aileen had this idea. She is a big podcast listener herself. And at the time, I really didn't listen to many.
Yeah.
But now I've started to, which is cool. And so, she just brought up the idea to me about, starting our own little podcast, since we always talk about such a variety of topics. And we thought, why not just put a mic in and see like our friends and other people, see if they resonate with the topics as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree with Louise. I think what happened was the idea came up during COVID times. Like obviously everyone had a lot of time to spare. And I think I just discovered podcasts during that period. Like when, I was going for a walk or something, I would just put something on because I feel like that's A, multitasking and B, also like enriching my mind.
Yeah.
And I think at that time I realized there just wasn't as much like Asian-led podcasts, maybe a few starting from America, but especially in Australia, nothing.
Yep.
So it was just that start of an idea. And then we would just catch up sometimes and have like 2-hour-long conversations about our lives and our cultures.
Yes.
So I was like, why don't we just do a podcast and catch up at the same time as well as spreading representation?
Yeah.
Like it's 2-in-1 and like something out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But like, who knows, like it might become something really cool. So that was just the thought process.
And then the Asian, I suppose, centric topic of Asianness. You guys, we spoke off camera that you wanted to do something in health because you guys both kind of have that background. Is there any like reason other than you both being Asian that you guys wanted to do the Asian centric stuff?
Like I said, like I think it was already a topic that wasn't talked enough about, especially in the podcast space. There was more and more Asian YouTubers, which is really cool, but definitely in the podcast Asian Australian space, there wasn't, in my eyes, enough representation yet, like going back a few years. So that was one of the main motivators. And I think a lot of our conversations were already revolving around some of these topics about culture and how that links to our thinking and also our life. So I was like, do other people think the same way that we do? But surely, like, there's so many Asians here.
Yep.
So kind of growing our community and, getting like-minded people to start talking.
And you can tell that so many people are thinking about the same topics and are talking about the same things, because we had that huge thing with like subtle Asian traits. And I just remember like the huge boom and like everyone was in the group and you could just tell like everything was relatable. Like everything like people were posting was like on point. We've experienced it.
Yes.
We've lived through that ourselves. And so it's really cool to be part of that community or like add our voices to this group, like the Asians in Australia. And to know that people might hear our podcast and be like, oh yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And sometimes we talk about our feelings or what kind of advice like we would have towards certain topics or like problems, and it's nice to know that maybe someone could hear that and they might learn something new.
Also, sorry.
What was it about a podcast? Because you guys could have had a blog. We don't know how anyone has a blog anymore. You know what I mean? You could have done YouTube. What was it that made you guys lean towards the podcast format?
For me, there's a few reasons. I think podcasting was becoming like a new thing. It wasn't as old as YouTube videos or blogs. So maybe more opportunity to start in that space. And also, I just think, especially if we just do audio format, which is what we've been doing now, it's quite easy to bring out a podcast and create one compared to video format
Yeah.
or blog. But that's very subjective. Yeah, that was just my initial thought process going in.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I definitely thought it was one of the more simpler options until you dive in and you realize there's a whole assortment of things that you have to think about. But yeah, it's a really easy way, given we started kind of like with COVID and everything and living far away from each other. It was very easy for us to set up, do it in our own homes at a time and place that's suitable for us.
Yeah.
And how do you guys like to consume podcasts? So, Eileen, you sort of said like if you go for a walk or whatever. For me, I literally listen to podcasts as long as I'm not with someone. So if I'm just eating food by myself, I will listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
Go for a walk, any travel to and from the city, whatever, literally any spare time I do.
Yeah.
So I guess my point with that is we had some, let's say, constructive criticism, that our episodes are quite long. But I'm used to sports podcasts that go for 2.5 to 3 hours. So I was like, an hour and a half is not that long.
Yeah.
So, but then again, that's because I'm used to in my spare time just listen half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour like that.
Yes.
How do you guys like to consume?
At the start, I definitely agree with that. Because I haven't listened to that many podcasts, I always thought, 1 hour, 40 minutes, like it's quite long. And I told Aileen, like, I'd like to keep the episodes to around like 30 minutes max. Not realizing that it's really easy to fill the 30 minutes when you're talking to someone about like a potentially very big topic. Now I like to always listen to podcasts on my way to and from work. I think it's just it's just my time to catch up on what's happening. And then my commute is like 30 minutes each way.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
So the 30 minutes works out really well, but I find that if it's longer, I just continue in my lunch break.
Yeah, I'm very similar. Like I said before, during exercise, I would listen to it unless I really needed a pump up jam and I would listen to music. But, and then also commute wise, I just think instead of like just sitting there on my phone mindlessly scrolling or looking out the window, I feel like it's a bit more productive if I'm actually paying attention to a podcast, maybe learning something or sharing experiences with the podcasters. But knowing myself, I can't put on a podcast and then do study, for example. I can't concentrate as much if there's two streams of information going at once. So when I listen to a podcast, it's very intentional and it's usually about topics that I'm quite interested in and I want to learn more about.
Yeah, so what kind of stuff do you guys listen to for fun?
Yeah. Initially, it was like a lot of relationship advice because we were both going through, I feel like, the stages of like new relationships and like cultivating them and then like long-term relationships. And then I do enjoy just like slice of life content where they just like talk about their day or like, family as well, content like that. Just like fun, light-hearted topics.
Like lifestyle more so than true crime and things like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wouldn't want to like delve into that late at night,
For me, I like to listen to a lot of psychology-based podcasts. Also to kind of learn a little bit more and like reflect in myself, like why do I feel this way or whatever. And I don't know. I just find psychology really interesting, like the human brain and why people do the things they do. I also like podcasts that, just talk about what is happening in the world at the moment. I listened to a few about like our referendum and like politics in America as well. That's so weird. Like I feel that's like very not me usually, but I've kind of been getting into it lately.
That's
and
cool.
they're really interesting. Yeah.
It's it's interesting to know what people actually like to listen to in their spare time. Like, so for me, I'm probably like 90% sport podcasts,
Yeah.
and then 10% would be politics.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. Like, I don't listen to sort of lifestyle
Yeah.
or those sorts of podcasts, but yeah, it's whatever you can do to try and enrich yourself, right?
That's right. Whatever areas you're interested in and you would want to invest in that time in. Yeah.
So how do you guys find time to do the podcasting? Obviously, anyone who's done one or has been near one knows how massively time consuming it is.
Oh, yeah.
You guys both are very busy ladies. Like, how do you fit it in? How do you justify spending the time on it?
You know what's been working really well lately? Aileen sends me her schedule for the next month or so,
Yeah.
and I compare that to my schedule. And then I'm like, okay, these days work for me.
Yeah.
Like, pick a day, and then we do it.
Yeah. It's essentially boiled down to using Google Calendar. And then
Yeah.
my Google Calendar is usually pretty chaotic, but we always seem to find time, which is really good. I think it was easier before when we were just working and I didn't have to study, or Louise is also doing a bit of further training in radiography. Much easier because most of our weekends might be free, or like Friday nights. Less so now, but I feel like because we both prioritize this as a passion project, we always do try and book in times to do the podcast anyway. And like Louise said, we try and limit our time and pre-plan, obviously.
Yeah.
So we don't use up too much time to just flounder around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good because our organisation levels are pretty similar. So we make sure we're kind of on the ball. We have maybe a group of topics that we're interested in, and then we cull it down to a few, and then plan a couple of episodes in advance on those certain topics. And then we just pick and choose and then write extra notes and go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very structured and very planned out.
Yeah,
which is
that's
what I'm
us.
getting from both of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fairly organized, I think. Like, I
Yeah.
sort of have to be with my work and things like that. And then with 2 kids and a wife as well, like, time is just
Yeah.
so precious. So
Yeah,
for me, trying to
definitely.
justify it, there's that saying. I'm not a big one on sayings, but your plants will grow. The ones will grow the ones you water the most, right? So if you actually put time into something,
Yeah.
then you will get some sort of growth reward from it.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I guess for your podcast, then, like, what lessons have you guys taken away so far in terms of what it means for people to be Asian in Australia? Is there any 1 or 2 things that you can be like, oh, right, I didn't actually think about that prior to starting this process?
I think it's been really...
I guess, like, what have you found out about yourself, if anything?
I know it sounds really like just we should all know this, but I feel like it's amplified my feelings of like every person's story and background is still different. Like, even though, like, we're ABCs, we have, I guess, similar upbringings, but I've learnt a lot about Aileen through the year of doing the podcast together. And like, we've been childhood friends, so you'd think we'd know everything about each other, but like the amount of new knowledge that I have gained about you is actually kind of mind-blowing to me.
Wow. You're welcome.
So it's cool.
And that's someone you've known for like most of your life, right?
Yeah.
There's still so many things you can uncover.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is really cool
absolutely.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely agree with Louise. I was literally going to say a similar thing. But like, although we're all Asian and we're probably all migrants to Australia or another white country, but we still have very different stories and backgrounds. Some things are very similar and some things can be different. And also talking about big topics like career, marriage, family. Like, there could be even differing views as well at some point. But it's nice to unpack all of that and kind of go through the psychology a bit in a sense too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like really, it's like a meditation when we have our podcast sessions.
Yeah.
It's like therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the feedback that most of my guests have given
Yeah.
us. And like I said, ours are probably a bit different because we're sometimes a bit deeper, but most of the time
Yeah.
we just talk nonsense.
Yeah.
But if
Love
someone
that.
sits down and is willing to speak to you for 2 hours about themselves, there's going to be times where it will be therapeutic.
Yeah.
It will be some sort of, introspective thinking,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I think, not even for us, but like for our guests, that's really cool
Yeah.
that we can provide that
Yeah.
for them.
Agreed. Also for me, in my workplace, especially in physio, there's not as much Asian physios, unfortunately, maybe just in my workplace and in Brisbane. So although I love my colleagues and I connect with them in some level, like I feel like I also look forward to branching out and making new connections with Asian Australians that have similar backgrounds. And then that's like a different pool of friends that I feel like I can make. So for me, I feel like it's quite rewarding.
Yeah. And that's actually a very good point because growing up as a minority, doesn't have to be Asian, but any minority in a country, you don't know what it's like unless you actually live it yourself, right?
Yeah.
So like some of my friends, they'll laugh, be like, it can't be that bad. Australia's whatever, we're open, we're multicultural, but it's just not like you can't, like I say, you can't explain it unless you actually live through it. So it's cool to have a bit of a community, to be surrounded by other people who have your experiences, right?
Yeah.
So on that, I was going to talk about common traits that you guys can either agree with or dispel.
Sure.
That I've got from the takeaway. So do Asian women flock together? And reason being is most of the guests we've had say that they usually get on better with other Asian women off the bat.
Yeah.
Just because there's the like of bubble tea, desserts, those sorts of things. You've had a similar upbringing, you probably went to Chinese school, those things.
Yeah.
Do you guys find you're more comfortable around other Asian women?
I would say so, but it depends on the energy that the other person is giving back to.
Yep.
I don't know, like some people might not be open to making new friends or maybe having a bad day. So if you getting that kind of energy from the other person, then it might not be always so easy. But usually, yeah, like if they're open to talking and you like can bond over certain likes, like bubble tea, then it's pretty easy, like you said, because there's common ground. But also it doesn't, it's not always females, like even males,
Yeah.
like you kind of just like naturally gravitate to conversations with each other.
So you go to like a party and you don't really know anyone.
Yeah.
You see an Asian group, would you go that way or would,
Yeah,
is
I
that
would.
sort of the mindset?
Yeah, I definitely would.
'Cause that's common,
Yeah.
very common. What about you, Louise?
I guess like maybe why we'd flock together is that like Asian women have a lot of similar problems.
Perfect.
So I know like my workplace is actually, we've got a lot of Asians.
Yeah.
And then I find that when I talk to other female colleagues, maybe we've had the same argument with our mom. And so we bond over that and share like what has helped. Because I think the relationship between an Asian mum and her daughter is quite unique. And so in that way, I think we would bond well together. But it's hard because in my high school years, we had Asians at our school, but I think my friendship group was a lot of mix. Like everyone, mostly females, but it was like all different kinds of cultures.
Yeah.
But then when I went to uni in Sydney, obviously a bigger Asian population, then I did gravitate towards more of an Asian friendship group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with my wife, I'm using her as the example because she was saying that's exactly her. If there's an Asian group, she'll go there first.
Yeah.
And to your point, Louise, it's that relationship with their parents or their mum. So you had a curfew. All the other girls, Asian girls, had the same curfew.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to date during high school. Just those sorts of things. And
Yeah.
that
True.
kind of builds that
Yeah.
immediate, okay, we're the same. We've a lot to talk about already.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we agree with that one.
Yeah.
Bubble tea and dessert. So I never grew up with it, so I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
But like a lot of our friends are very into it. I'm assuming you guys are as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it
Short
the flavor?
answer.
Is it the? I don't even know what is it about it that you guys love.
It was literally one of our first questions in our first episode of getting to know us. We talked about bubble tea.
It's the QQ feeling, you know.
Is it the pearls that you like?
Yeah.
It's everything.
It's all encompassing.
First of all, the tea. Like, you know how in Australia, like, people drink tea, but they don't really tend to have it as a dessert.
Right.
Whereas bubble tea, it's like sweet tea. Like, it almost sounds healthy, but it's not. And I personally really like tea. And so with tea with milk, and then like the bobas are like, yeah, like Louise said, quite bouncy, like good texture. And sometimes they can have like brown sugar with them. So yeah, sweet.
I like the different flavors that you get beyond like the Western, I don't know, like milkshake flavors or like smoothie flavors.
Yeah.
You get I guess it's the Asian flavors coming
Yeah.
out. You know, your taro, matcha, hojicha. The list goes on. But I will say that it is definitely more of a city thing. So back in
Yeah.
Canberra, I would probably get it maybe once a month or every 2 months because it's just not available and it's just not that good. And then you come to Brisbane, let's not even talk about Sydney.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, I gained a few kilos from just bubble tea weight.
Yeah.
What's the weekly consumption then for you guys?
I will say that I got to 4 bubble teas a week. I have now cut down to maybe once a month again.
Okay.
Yeah. Louise, she gets them more often because she lives south side. So there's
Yeah.
more options.
It's so
Whereas
hard.
I live north side. It's so sad. Like I have to travel to the city or south side to get a bubble tea. Yeah. Let's not talk about that depressing situation.
We can get one afterwards.
We should. So I actually don't have them that often recently. Like when I was like when I would go on dates with my partner in the city, we would always get one because there's many available there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how it's like a work thing maybe to all get coffees together? At my workplace, it is to all put in a bubble tea order. I kid you
Yes.
not, it is.
Probably speaks to how many Asians, as you said before, work
True.
together.
True.
The next one then. So are our parents hoarders? Are your parents hoarders? My parents don't think they are, but I think they are.
You think they are?
Yep.
Yeah. I think my parents are. I think my mum is.
My mum is.
Yeah.
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 And that's a commonality, right, with most Asian
Yeah.
immigrant parents.
Maybe it's because of, yeah, again, coming from the not having enough to just holding on to everything.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Then my is totally as well.
Oh.
He keeps like all my primary school notebooks, like not textbooks where you can actually reuse them, but the notebooks that I've already written in with my maths like equations on. And I'm like, why are you not just recycling this? When we were moving house between 2 houses, it's the perfect opportunity, right, to get rid of some things in the garage.
Yep.
They carted everything back to the new place. And then they were like, oh, sort it out later. And they never sorted it out.
Oh my goodness.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And then I guess my last one is, and be honest if you didn't or you did, have you guys actually faced discrimination in Australia for your race?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys give me an example of what might have happened.
I think it is more when I was younger. I definitely remember being discriminated or like bullied in primary school, and I think it is from my background.
Was it physical or
Just verbal.
Yep.
And I just think it stems from lack of education. Like kids are kids, we do dumb things, we say dumb things, and maybe it's because at the time, like maybe their parents didn't tell them. I went to a predominantly Western school as well, so obviously very clearly a bit of an odd one out.
Yeah.
And kids tend to pick on people that are different to them. As I've grown up, not so much. I've found maybe because of the representation becoming more prevalent in our society and maybe just moving to places with more of an Asian community, I don't feel like it's a problem anymore.
Yeah. Mine's a bit different. So I would say I was very lucky growing up in my schools. I don't think I felt direct discrimination towards my race. Maybe because the friends that I hung out with were very inclusive. So that was lucky. I think in society in general, like walking around, I've had instances where people might have made a really racist comment, like just maybe like in the shopping center, and I just ignore them and just keep walking. But obviously that's not nice to hear. And sometimes you want to bite back, but then it's probably better of you if you just, keep going with your life. Like they don't deserve that kind of time. And then I would say the rest of it is more like either silent discrimination or people don't realize that they might be discriminating in a certain way. Like, for example, like at work, we do get asked a bit like, oh, where are you really from?
That's the question, right?
Yeah. And it's always like in my mind in that instant, I'm like, how do I answer this question? Like, do I tell them my whole backstory? Like, oh, hey, I was born in China, but I moved to Australia when I was 4. So it's not always like a clear answer. And most of the time, I don't really take too much offense to it because I know they're not coming from a bad place. They're just being curious. But yeah, like sometimes it can feel a little bit like they're judging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? To both of you, I guess. Do you feel that same kind of discrimination when that question is asked from someone of your own race? I find a lot of...
where are you actually from question.
Yeah, like I find a lot of Asians that come through my workplace, they ask me that question. Yeah.
That's a
Definitely
good question.
not.
No, I don't
Because
think
I
so.
think it's pretty common. Like
Yeah.
we probably spoke this morning when we first met. It's like,
Yeah.
well, so where are you guys from?
Yeah, I asked
Obviously,
you.
I know you guys from here. But you don't get offended. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting double standard that we have
Yeah.
as immigrants.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe because we assume that we're coming with the attitude of being curious and just wanting to know more. And the way we ask it too.
I think it's the way it's asked.
Yeah, usually quite respectful and nice. Yeah.
And then last one on this kind of topic or side is, what is it like being a young Asian woman at the moment? So I'm more looking at it from, okay, you've had the pressure from parents, not necessarily your situation, but it's get educated, do this, do that, set yourself up, hopefully be better than the last generation. Do you guys feel pressure that you have to kind of not stray too far outside of the box in terms of it's got to be, okay, well, I've got a job and then I've got to get married and I can't deviate too far away from that? Do you guys feel that pressure, or it's not really something you guys worry about too much?
I feel like I do feel the pressure in some aspects, like, getting a job, getting a house, getting married, having kids, those timelines. I think because I do come from quite a traditional Chinese background, my parents and grandparents are not as progressive. So it kind of, I think when my grandparents call my parents, all of the conversations is like, when is Aileen getting married? So then inadvertently that becomes pressure to me. But I myself try and stay balanced. I listen to their advice as recommendations because I understand they're coming from a good place.
Yeah.
But then you shouldn't put so much stress and pressure on yourself that it actually becomes a negative thing.
Yeah. And the worst you can do then is do a knee jerk and just marry someone for the sake of it.
Exactly.
To meet those timelines, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I find that maybe it's because we're also females. I feel as though there's like some extra stuff that's put on us by our families. Just in general though, it's just, especially from doing the podcast, it's been an eye-opener to see the challenges that we face as ABCs or like female ABCs. It's it's actually a very tough place to be. You're in the middle of two cultures when you have traditional parents and you want to be respectful and you want to please them, you want to meet their expectations. But then you see the other side as well, and you see the good things about maybe the Western culture. And then I find it's a bit of a juggle to try and balance out taking the good things from the Asian culture and then the Western culture and trying to make it me and my culture.
Yeah.
And it sometimes doesn't, they kind of do clash. And like my parents have things to say about like some things they don't agree with maybe the Western culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I've come to realize as I get older, it's about maybe our parents will always be concerned with whatever decision we make, but we need to just maybe weigh up the pros and cons, make what we think is the best decision for ourselves. We will get the backlash maybe from the parents or like concerns, but hopefully in the end they'll see our progress and then be happy for us. And if we have made the wrong decision, at least we can learn from that as well.
Yeah, really nicely said. I think also in a way, we're almost like a new wave of, I don't know, like species.
We're an experiment.
Yeah.
Because it's going to work in a country like this, right?
Because our parents were maybe first, second generation, first time coming to Australia from their respective countries. And then we're getting brought up or born in this Western society with our Asian background. So, yeah, like you said, Louise, we're kind of working through that amalgamation.
Yeah, like there's so many amazing things about our culture, but because our eyes have been open to a different viewpoint of things and different cultures, maybe we've noticed some things that aren't so good about our culture, or maybe it's just our family and we want to move away from that. And doing that in a respectful way and being able to justify ourselves to potentially parents that might not understand because they have their own viewpoint is quite difficult.
Yeah.
And so I do feel pressure from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sort of coming full circle because I was going to mention this at the start, Louise, and then when you brought up what parents think it's like to be brought up in like the traditional Chinese upbringing. So one of our early episodes, we had my wife's auntie, Sophia, and she was born in Vietnam. They came over by boat. And anyway, her parents had this like ideological idea that this is how Vietnamese kids are raised. But the problem is they left in like the 50s and the 60s. And that's a long time from now to what the modern day Vietnamese kids are raised like. So their whole thing was you got to wear the traditional dresses and there's a certain way, you got to do makeup and just things like that. But they were stuck 50 years ago on what it was like. I'm sure it's way different to what it was like 50 years in Australia, what kids were like. So a lot of the immigrant families, the Asian immigrant families, they bring that mindset and they think that that's what it should be. It's like you say, it's that struggle, it's that battle of trying to take the good from each and, be true to yourself at the end of the day, because you can only try to live for your parents for so long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're going to pass hopefully before we do, and then we've got to live the rest of our lives.
Yeah. We also did an episode with some girls in Hong Kong talking about our parents' ideals of success versus our ideals of success, which was quite interesting as well because they are different. And then, it's like our parents and us trying to see each other's viewpoints. It's sometimes not always obvious. Maybe like where each of us is coming from. I try to keep an open mind and just be like, listen to my parents, understand the reasons why they think this is the right path. And then you just kind of hope that they also listen to why we think our choices are right for us as well.
Yeah. And also I think I always need to remind myself that usually parents are coming from a place of love, and they want the best for you, and also imparting certain aspects of our like Chinese culture is because they want to preserve it. You know, like they don't want to be completely westernized, even though they've migrated here.
Yeah.
Which is, I totally agree with those mindsets, but it's about the delivery, and it's about the level of which you take what advice they give you
Yeah.
for your own circumstance. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree with all of that. And it goes back to perspective, right? It's all perspective. Are we mature enough to realize, yes, the parents, all they want is for us to be happy and the best for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily because they want to mold us in a certain way and I'm going to rebel against that at all costs, you know? So, yeah, the perspective is so key.
Yeah. And maybe when we were younger, it's really hard to come to that understanding because we weren't as mature, or like we didn't really think about it that much. In the moment, it feels awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now it's easier to think through and understand. Yeah.
We'll end on a quick rapid fire. Now, these are rapid fire, but I like to have a little bit of context as well as to what you guys say. So
Okay.
you can both answer them and then we kind of just take it like that.
Yeah.
So who do you guys go to when you need advice?
Louise.
My mom.
For me, it's usually friends,
Friends, yeah.
and also more so Asian girlfriends. Except I do have one of my best friends is in Canberra, and she's Aussie as well, and she's awesome. So yeah, it's because whenever I have a crisis, I feel like I always go to my friends, so they already know all my crisis history. So
Just kind of build on the
yeah,
on the old
exactly.
ones.
Yeah.
And Louise, do you find that you take the advice from your mom?
So my mum likes to say that she gives me like the truth, like the real advice, not watered down, not a lie, not fluffy and like with flowers all around it. So I know she's giving me the advice from a place of love, concern, and what she actually thinks is best for me, given she knows me so well. I take it with a grain of salt. I like to listen to what she says. And then, I do take advice from my friends too. And I like to come to a decision from all different places.
Good.
What are your biggest priorities at the moment? So one each. Right now, at this very second, what's the most important thing for you?
Most important thing, like anything. Being at peace.
Well, what does that mean to you? Because I love to hear what people.
Yeah. I was going to say studying, but that's so boring.
What would peace look like?
Peace would be just like I have a clear direction of where I'm heading in life. And like we talked about before, not too much external pressure.
Yeah.
Because everyone is at least supporting where I'm going. And also I'm quite content with the direction I'm going in life. And I don't have any like big things like that I'm really confused about, or I'm still finding myself in a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's refreshing to hear. Because I think most people our age, our generation, aren't at peace. Like,
Yeah.
It's
Which is normal.
sad, but it's the reality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so deep. I'm doing the bridge to Brisbane tomorrow. So
Oh my God.
yeah, priorities to just finish the race, make it to the finish line without dying.
Do you have a time in mind?
I'm hoping to beat my previous PB, which was an hour 27.
Nice.
Yeah.
Got this.
Not sure how I'm going to go with all the hills, but
How's the training been going?
it's been good. I have been running for the past 2 months now, and trying to do like longer runs. I can run 5Ks now without stopping and like being like I'm about to vomit. But yeah, first like official race, which is really exciting, and I just can't wait to eat whatever I want afterwards.
Well, by the time this comes out, you will have run the race.
Oh yeah, keep you guys updated.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
got
let
this.
everyone know how you went.
Proud of you.
What's your greatest accomplishments? So another one each, if you can. Yours can be So from tomorrow, you will have run again.
It's a very good accomplishment.
One of my biggest accomplishments would have been graduating uni. A really big one for my family too. I know they were very proud given like there wasn't many people that have graduated. So I was really proud for myself and proud that I was able to do that for my mum and dad.
No, that's great. I think a lot of us take it for granted because, again, we're in Australia. It's kind of expected. It's like, oh, well, you go to school, go to uni. But it's something we've got to celebrate along the way. It's an accomplishment for sure.
Yeah. I think mine would be actually moving interstate by myself. I think my personality before I moved out of Canberra and out of home compared to now is very different. And I don't think that would have been the case if I had stayed in Canberra or like done uni in Canberra. So I think it was a very big step out of my comfort zone to just move completely to a different state. I barely knew anyone, like just start uni and live there and make friends and make a community here, and now like I'm staying here long term. So, but yeah, I think in terms of like I recently bought my own house, so that was
Congratulations.
thank you. Like yeah, I never thought I'd be able to do that at this point in my life. So it's crazy. Like you just shouldn't doubt yourself. Like, and in terms of the processes, when you go through it, it's actually might not be as stressful as you think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now that's a great accomplishment as well in itself.
Thank you.
If money didn't matter, what would your dream jobs be?
That's so hard.
That is very
You
hard.
guys seem to like travel, so you could be like,
Yeah. I'm trying to like create a career that pieces together everything that I like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
food taster.
Yes.
I would really like to be in like a wedding singer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like I'd like to be able to, I don't know, like have other people like a little band and then you can sing at like weddings. I feel like that's just like combines a lot of things that I really like doing.
Yeah. We are so similar. I was thinking maybe a traveling wedding planner.
That wouldn't be the worst.
Yeah.
It's stressful
Because
as hell,
you
but-
can travel. I like planning things, so I don't mind that.
His destination
Weddings are like really beautiful and I'll probably cry at every one of them. I can wear nice dresses and stuff and look nice. And I would assume it's a really well-paid job, so
That's a good one. I like
yeah.
that.
I didn't know that about myself.
I didn't know
until
that about you.
Can you describe each other in 3 words?
today. Oh my God.
If you steal my words, I'll be really disappointed.
Goes to show our bond. Introspective. Thinks
Interesting.
a lot about herself internally in life.
Wow.
Patient and very kind. That's 2 words. Kind.
Okay, about you. Outgoing,
Thank you.
hardworking, family oriented with a hyphen. So it's one word.
Okay.
Yes. It's always a fun exercise to describe your friends and then also hearing back what they think of you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
one.
you guys do that as like a rapid fire on your
We'll add it.
episode. But
Do you think how I described you is correct?
I think so. So was it family oriented,
outgoing.
outgoing, and
Hardworking.
hardworking? The outside people might think I'm really outgoing,
Mm.
but inside it's more of a balance, I would say. Like there are times where when I need to be outgoing, I will be, but there are times where I just want to be a potato at home.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask the same question. for Louise.
I'm surprised you said that I was introspective because I don't feel that way myself.
That's what an introspective person says.
Yeah, when I was, I'm 26. Last year when I was 25, I went through a couple of quarter life crises. Yeah, I don't know. I feel as though I listened to a lot of people and then ruminated about it a lot.
Yeah, and that's
I don't
thinking
know.
is being introspective. If you had no idea, you wouldn't be.
It's good to know.
So what do you guys do to relax?
I like taking long baths, but now the weather's a bit too hot for that. So I've been doing a lot of reading.
Okay.
Reading with a scented candle.
Oh, love it.
Sounds pretty good. Might need some of that myself. If you guys could change one thing about yourselves, doesn't have to be physically, can be physically, what would you change?
Maybe sometimes, like, I really love my job, like my career. And I don't really want to change anything about it at the moment. But sometimes, like, talking to friends and like my partner and stuff, the flexibility of working
Yeah.
can be sometimes a bit frustrating.
So the lack of flexibility, just
Yeah.
it's too time consuming. Yep.
Not time consuming, more so like I work from 8 to 4 every day, standard hours. I have to sometimes work weekends or on calls. And then in terms of taking leave, it's not like if I want to take leave, it's definitely going to be approved.
Yeah.
Because in the hospital, it's just always busy and sometimes understaffed. So it's just not as easy as maybe in corporate where you just put in leave and it gets approved. And
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's what I've heard. So yeah.
I think there's some ways you can work around this issue, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
It's something to
Yeah. I'm not going to make any changes at the moment, but it's just something sometimes I think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have pretty much the same problem at work as well. Yeah, it's a bit tough sometimes, but yeah. For me, I wish that I was a bit more decisive. I've just never been very quickly like yes, no to this. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Are there certain things that you are more indecisive about? So like, is it a restaurant? Is it if someone just says, "Hey guys, we're going out tonight"? Oh, I don't know. Maybe. Is there certain things that you are less decisive about?
Nah, I think it's more maybe the more important decisions that you have to make. I feel like I've always been like, oh, I feel there's like so many pathways, so many options, and it overwhelms me a lot. So I think that's why I kind of like the psychology podcast, because it helps, it kind of gives me the advice and like more knowledge to maybe why I'm like that.
Yeah.
And
Have you got any insights so far from your readings, listenings?
yeah, actually. So last year when I was having my crisis, I went to a really great psychology talk in Brisbane. And what I got out of that was basically when you feel overwhelmed and you have so many options, you should just pick one, go with that for a couple of months or even half a year, see if you like it. And if not, choose a different one. Because it's all about forward movement and setting goals to keep yourself moving. Whereas like when you're kind of like at the fork in the road and you don't know where to decide where to go, that's when you feel so stuck and you can go a bit crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you keep ruminating about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I applied that to my own life. I felt immediately better about it. And yeah, I was able to take it from there. Yeah.
Well, I think that's like very, very good advice, is that try to understand why these certain things are causing blockages or blanks in your life. And there's so many other people going through the similar thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then figure out, okay, well, what can I actually do to improve or to make it a positive, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mine was so like non-deep. I just want to break.
Much more deep, yeah. It's different priorities right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the last one is, when's the last time you guys have tried something new, brand new?
For me, I guess it was when I started my new training. So in radiography, we do x-rays, CTs as a general rule, but you can upskill into, say, ultrasound. What I'm doing at the moment is MRI. It's completely new, different machine, different way of scanning and getting images. So it's definitely over my head. I've done it for just over a month now.
Okay.
So yeah, something completely new and challenging, but pretty rewarding so far.
Yeah, I thought of one. I'm not doing this anymore, but it was like a very temporary trial.
I know what you're going to say.
Me and my friend actually, we signed up to like an introductory course in pole dancing.
Right.
Yes. I mainly wanted to try it because I just keep seeing videos of girls like on Instagram and it looks really fun and looks like quite challenging and a good workout. So I just wanted to see if my body would be able to do that type of exercise. And yeah, it was very challenging and I wouldn't say I was the best at all, but I'm glad I experienced it. And it is a bit out of my comfort zone because you don't really wear too much because you have to grip onto the pole.
Are you still doing it?
No, I'm not.
Probably.
Just a trial. I think I probably next thing I want to try is just dance because I think I'm more comfortable with just doing like hip hop dance and I've done it before just as a hobby. So yeah, I might dabble in that later on.
So we got a lot of friends or guests that are in the pole community. Just because one of our good friends, Kev, who he hosts from time to time as well. He's very much into the pole community. So,
Yeah. That's
it's,
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to get an insight. It's like you say, it's a massive step.
Yeah.
Like you say, you're wearing nothing.
Yeah.
You don't have the technique, the strength.
Yeah.
And there are connotations and things around the
That's
acts
right.
of pole dancing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really interesting to get an insight from that side of it.
Yeah.
The community is very strong and very tightly knit. So, yeah.
Yeah. It was super fun. Like if anyone wants to try, definitely recommend.
Well, thanks so much, guys, for your time.
No
Thank
worries.
you.
Thank you.
Doing our episode pretty soon. But, yeah, if you guys just want to give a quick shout out to your podcast.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for listening and thanks Ethan for having us. So our podcast is called Your Everyday Asian and on socials we're called Your Everyday Asian .podcast on Instagram.
Yeah, so go follow us on our socials. It's been really great to chat today, and we can't wait to also have you on our podcast as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think hopefully this was a good chance for your audience and my audience to get to know you guys a little bit better. There's obviously things that you would have spoken about in the past, but it's hopefully given a good sort of foundation of get to know these ladies a bit better, a bit about where you guys come from, and yeah, definitely check them out. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a really great chat.
thanks.